costs of his own disastrous economic policy. We in this House watched as these things happen, and the Chinese state watched too, and saw that it could act with impunity. And the Minister says that there is no trade-off between democracy, our democratic and national interests and security interests and our economic interests. But I'm afraid that is exactly what has happened. Now, I do understand the Minister will be unable to say very much about the new case, but I think we all know what we're dealing with here. So I hope he will be clear about what the government's response is going to be. And I hope he will talk a little bit about whether this case touches on members in this House. Because whilst we've been here, the BBC and The Guardian have reported that one of those arrested is the spouse of a sitting Labour MP, and that another is the spouse of a former Labour MP. Given that this is being reported in the press, will the Minister confirm whether or not this is true? Will he also give a cast-iron guarantee to this House that the government will do everything in its power to prevent this case from collapsing? We have seen this show before. Will he promise that, unlike last time, the Chinese ambassador will be summoned by ministers and told that aggressive interference in our country and its democracy will no longer be tolerated? And will he, actually, Mr. Speaker, I should say how right you were to deny that ambassador access to this House? Will he also commit to placing China now on the enhanced tier of foreign influence registration? The Minister says that China presents a series of threats, but during the last spy scandal, the government refused to say the crucial words, that China posed a risk to our national security, and they wouldn't publicly accept that China was opposed or hostile to the interests of the United Kingdom. Can he really accept that can he now accept that this position is no longer tenable? The Minister says that if there is proven evidence of attempts by China to interfere with UK sovereign affairs, the government will impose severe consequences and hold all actors involved to account. Look, we sincerely hope that this is true. But it wasn't true last time, Mr. Speaker. And so here we are again. And we will, unless this government finally steps up, be back here time and time again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for his response? I mean, I'm grateful to him for acknowledging the speed at which the government has sought to brought forward a statement. And I know that he and right honourable and honourable members will understand that there are very strict limitations in terms of what I can say about what is obviously now a live police investigation. But let me also say that I hope I speak for all sides of the House when I say that these are the most serious matters that require us as a House to put the protection of our democracy above any political point scoring, and that is the way in which we should approach these proceedings. Now, he's sought, for reasons that I understand, to critique the government's position, and I understand why he sought to do that. But I can say to him that I am confident in the government's response to this incident and to our wider agenda on countering political interference. But of course it is right that members from across this House have the opportunity to scrutinise government policy and to ask questions, and that is precisely why we've moved at pace to provide an opportunity for them to do so. I also want to give the member opposite and other right honourable and honourable members a guarantee that, given the sensitivity of these issues and the obvious need to protect the operational activity of our police and the security services, we will look for other opportunities to provide appropriate briefings to the relevant members across this House by the relevant experts to ensure that they can be updated in a way that we are simply not able to do in this House. Now, the honourable gentleman did raise a number of questions, and I know that he will understand that there are strict limitations in terms of what I can say. But let me give him an assurance of the seriousness with which we take these matters. I've always believed that the work that takes place, led by government but across this House to defend our democracy, should be a shared endeavour. The Defending Democracy Task Force was an initiative brought forward by the previous government. This government has invested in it. It is the the fulcrum point by which we coordinate activity across government and with law enforcement partners, working very closely with Mr. Speaker and the parliamentary security authorities here in the House to ensure that our elected representatives are properly protected against the threats that we face. And I give him an assurance of the government's absolute determination to stand with all members to ensure that they are properly protected. Now, he knows, because we've had these exchanges on numerous occasions, that matters relating to prosecutions are very specifically matters for the Crown Prosecution Service, and it isn't for ministers from the dispatch box to opine and to make judgments on them, because the CPS is rightly independent of government. But he does know, as do other honourable members, how extremely disappointed the government were that the trial in last autumn did not proceed. Clearly, as he will understand, there is a crucial difference in that charges in that particular case had been brought forward under the Official Secrets Act of 1911. But I am confident that the National Security Act of 2023 provides the robust legislation that we need to address the threats that we undoubtedly face. The honourable member mentioned FIRS, and I understand why he decided to do so. FIRS is an important capability that comes from the National Security Act. It is still a relatively new tool, and we're seeking to ensure that we are able to derive the maximum capability, the operational capability from it. But I can say to him that we haven't made any final decisions as to whether we will be placing other countries on the enhanced tier, but we keep that under very close review. Mr. Speaker, as I've made clear, this government will simply not tolerate attempts to interfere in our democracy. We've already taken tough action to strengthen our defences against foreign interference, and we will not hesitate to take further steps where they are necessary.
Mark Weston, Chair of the National Joint Security Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Minister?
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 1 o'clock on Wednesday, the 4th of March. I'm Nana Akua.
And I'm Tom Harwood. Well, in the last few minutes, the Security Minister Dan Jarvis told sensationally the House of Commons that 3 men have been arrested on suspicion of spying for China. Other reports suggest that at least one of these individuals could be the partner of a sitting Labour MP.
And the Security Minister, Dan Jarvis, there saying that we will engage with China confidently and pragmatically, and that we don't trade off security for economic progress.
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Oh, I heard that yesterday live. Hilarious. In an extraordinary attack on the Prime Minister, Donald Trump criticises the lack of support for the war in Iran, but Downing Street insists that the UK will act only in its national interest and legal frameworks, even as this diplomatic rift reverberates through the defence circles on both sides of the Atlantic. Is this the beginning of the end of the special relationship?
Enter the Dragon. Yes, HMS Dragon is to set sail to Cyprus, where British assets are being bolstered by security around the RAF Akrotiri base. But how long will it take to get there?
Breaking this morning, Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps has claimed it has taken complete control of the Strait of Hormuz, warning any vessel passing through the waterway will be set on fire.
And an evacuation in Oman. The first repatriation flight to bring stranded Brits back home leaves Muscat International Airport at 7 o'clock this evening.
The EU Asylum Agency says that the conflict in Iran could induce a migration influx of unprecedented magnitude that could swamp the European Union's borders, describing it as potentially the biggest migration crisis in a generation.
Well, what a day of news it is turning out to be. Let's go straight to our national reporter, Charlie Peters, who has more on the news of those 3 arrests. Charlie.
Good afternoon to you, Tom and Nana. Yes, we heard from Dan Jarvis there, the Security Minister, discussing and announcing to the House that 3 arrests have been made, 3 men on suspicion of spying for China, and that these arrests relate to foreign interference targeting UK democracy. Mr. Jarvis said that we will always challenge any country, including China, that attempts to interfere on the integrity of our institutions. He continued to say that the UK was engaging with China confidently and pragmatically, and added also that we don't trade off security for economic access. I do have a statement to bring you from Commander Helen Flanagan, who's the head of counter-terrorism policing in London. She has said, "We have seen a significant increase in our casework relating to national security in recent years, and we continue to work extremely closely with our partners to help keep the country safe and take action to disrupt malign activity where we suspect it." Commander Flanagan continues that today's arrests are part of a proactive investigation, and while these are serious matters, we do not believe there are any imminent or direct threat to the public relating to this. Our investigation continues, and we thank the public for their ongoing support. Now, detectives from Counter-Terrorism Policing London, who are leading this investigation, arrested a 39-year-old man at an address in London this morning, and a 68-year-old man at an address in Powys in Wales, and a 43-year-old man in Pontyclun in Wales as well. They were all detained under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act and taken into custody, where they currently remain. Now, officers have carried out searches.
Charlie, thank you very much.
Addresses.
We're going to go straight to the United States, where Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, is speaking.
Operation early Saturday morning, just 4 days ago, which means we need to remember 2 things. First, we are only 4 days into this. Metrics are shifting, dust is settling, and more forces are arriving. It's very early. And as President Trump has said, we will take all the time we need to make sure that we succeed. Second, we are only 4 days into this, and the results have been incredible. Historic, really. Only the United States of America could lead this, only us. But when you add the Israeli Defense Forces, a devastatingly capable force, the combination is sheer destruction for our radical Islamist Iranian adversaries. They are toast, and they know it. Or at least, soon enough, they will know it. And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities, just 4 days in. Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the 2 most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. B-2s, B-52s, B-1s, Predator drones, fighters, controlling the skies, picking targets. Death and destruction from the sky, all day long. We're playing for keeps. Our warfighters have maximum authorities granted personally by the president and yours truly. Our rules of engagement are bold, precise, and designed to unleash American power, not shackle it. This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be. Thus far, Operation Epic Fury has delivered twice the air power of shock and awe of Iraq in 2003, minus Paul Bremer and the nation building. The campaign has 7 times the intensity of Israel's previous operations against Iran during the 12-day war. 7 times. And as President Trump said, more and larger waves are coming. We are just getting started. We are accelerating, not decelerating. Iran's capabilities are evaporating by the hour, while American strength grows fiercer, smarter, and utterly dominant. More bombers and more fighters are arriving just today. And now, with complete control of the skies, we will be using 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs, of which we have a nearly unlimited stockpile. We used more exquisite standoff munitions at the start, but no longer need to. Our stockpiles of those, as well as Patriots, remains extremely strong. The enemy can no longer shoot the volume of missiles they once did, not even close. And the chairman will lay out some of those percentages. So our air defenses and that of our allies have plenty of runway. We can sustain this fight easily for as long as we need to. And as I said yesterday, we set the terms. Now, you may not see much of it because the IRGC shut off the internet to the entirety of the country. They blind their people on purpose, just like they kill their own on purpose. Much was made of the volume of missiles Iran was able to shoot in the first few days. And sadly, as we projected, a few got through and killed 6 of our best, who will hopefully arrive home soon. We will avenge them, no doubt. But I liken Iran's predicament to a football team who scripted the first 20 plays of a game. The team knew what plays to run because their first few drives were scripted. But now that the game has started and the blitz is on, they don't know what plays to call, let alone how to get in the huddle and call those plays. Iran's senior leaders are dead. The so-called governing council that might have selected a successor, dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers, too terrified to even occupy the same room. Senior generals, mid-level officers, enlisted ranks, they can't talk or communicate, let alone mount a coordinated and sustained offensive. That's not great for morale. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. In fact, last night, we sunk their prize ship, the Soleimani. Looks like POTUS got him twice. Their Navy, not a factor. Pick your adjective, it is no more. In fact, yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win. Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh. Now, this is not a mission accomplished situation. This is simply a reality check. The combination of U.S. and Israeli intelligence and combat power will control Iran, and will control it soon. Sure, Iran will still be able to shoot some missiles and still be able to launch one-way attack drones at civilian targets, and their proxies will attempt to attack our embassies, bases, and soft targets. They are terrorists, after all, and they need to target civilians because they can't fight toe-to-toe. But we will find them, and we will kill them. This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality. The terms of this war will be set by us at every step. As I said Monday, the mission is laser focused. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and facilities that produce them, annihilate its navy and critical security infrastructure, and sever their pathway to nuclear weapons. Iran will never possess a nuclear bomb, not on our watch, not ever. And this is why President Trump's moral clarity on Iran today is so vital. Unlike the past, where vague red lines and endless negotiations let Iran fund terror and inch ever so slightly toward a bomb, this president sees the threat plainly and acts decisively. No more half measures, especially when Iran is at its weakest. No more letting Tehran play for time while our people pay the price. His leadership ensures that we finish what we start and that we protect our warfighters by crushing the enemy before they can strike again. Our offensive operations, refined through months of relentless preparation, are unstoppable. And our defensive efforts are unprecedented. We have from the start put the protection of our troops ahead of everything else. Before we very publicly built up offensive combat power, we quietly ensured that our defensive posture and power was in place. And as we built up offensive combat power, we moved the vast majority of American troops, over 90% of Americans that were on our bases, what we say off the X, out of the range of Iranian fire. Our defensive shield is equally formidable, the most sophisticated air and missile defense network ever fielded. Thousands of Iranian missiles and drones have been intercepted and vaporized. Tens of thousands of American and allied lives protected. We have pushed every counter-UAS system possible forward, sparing no expense or capability. And like I said, this does not mean we can stop everything, but we ensured that the maximum possible defense and maximum possible force protection was set up before we went on offense. In closing, as President Trump told German Chancellor Merz yesterday, Iran negotiated in bad faith, stalling, scheming, and preparing to strike. And we acted decisively to defend our people, our interests, and our allies. President Trump took bold action, putting America first, the kind of bold action that the American people elected him to execute. To our steadfast partner, Israel, your mission is being executed with unmatched skill and iron determination. Fighting shoulder to shoulder with such a capable ally is a true force multiplier and a breath of fresh air. We salute your courage and your contribution. 4 days in, we have only just begun to fight. America fights to win, and in Operation Epic Fury, we are. May God's providence cover and protect our troops always. And with that, I turn it over to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm here today to provide the American people and those of you in this room an update on Operation Epic Fury. First, it's with profound sadness and gratitude that I share the names of 4 of our 6 fallen heroes, all from the 103rd Sustainment Command, U.S. Army Reserves out of Des Moines, Iowa. Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tegens, Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, and Sergeant Declan Cody. To the families of our fallen, we grieve with you today, and we look forward to welcoming your family members home at Dover in the coming days. Out of respect for the other families, we'll withhold the release of their names until next of kin notification is complete. And either myself or Admiral Cooper will release those names as soon as we can ensure that all of those families have been properly notified. To our Gold Star families, to our wounded warriors and their loved ones, we will never forget your sacrifice. Our nation stands with you, and we are eternally grateful for your courage, your resiliency, your devotion to this mission and to our nation. As the Secretary said, we're 4 days in, 103 hours into this campaign. The operation was again launched with clear military objectives designed to dismantle Iran's ability to project power outside of its borders, both today and in the future. First, we are targeting and eliminating Iran's ballistic missile systems to prevent them from threatening the U.S. Forces, partners, and interests in the region. Second, we are destroying the Iranian Navy, degrading its capacity, capability, and ability to conduct operations, not just in the Central Command AOR, but as the Secretary showed in the video, around the world. Third, we're ensuring Iran cannot rapidly rebuild or reconstitute its combat capability or combat power, and those phases will begin as the campaign continues. As of this morning, U.S. Central Command is making steady progress. Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days. This progress has allowed CENTCOM to establish localized air superiority across the southern flank of the Iranian coast and penetrate their defenses with overwhelming precision and firepower. We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces. Let me explain a little bit about how we're thinking about staying ahead of the enemy. First, over the past several weeks, Admiral Cooper and the CENTCOM team have refined their operational approach to the region. Their planners identified key centers of gravity that would allow Iran to project power outside of its borders. They thought about how to isolate critical vulnerabilities and determined where, with precision, the greatest strategic effect could be achieved. As a result of this, CENTCOM is now shifting in day 4 already from large deliberate strike packages using standoff munitions at range outside an enemy's ability to shoot at us, now into stand-in precision strikes overhead Iran. As the Secretary said, this is a point of munitions transition from standoff munitions to stand-in munitions like Joint Direct Attack munitions, which are GPS-aided free-fall weapons, and other things like Hellfires, etc. This will allow the joint force to deliver significantly increased precision effects on the target. The throttle is coming up, as the Secretary said, as opposed to ramping down. This will allow us to maintain consistent pressure on the adversary over the coming days, disrupt their launch timelines, and impose cost every day around the clock. I know there have been a lot of questions about munitions. We have sufficient precision munitions for the task at hand, both on the offense and defense. But I want to tell you, teammates, as a matter of practice, I don't want to be talking about quantities. And I know there's been a great debate about that, and I appreciate the interest, but just know that we consider that an operational security matter. Let me flip to the map here. Hopefully I don't kill anybody with a laser pointer. As I mentioned earlier, and for you with the camera right there, my friend, I hope I don't ricochet off and hurt you. Over the initial days, the U.S. Joint Forces continued to attack and attrit ballistic missile capabilities as well as integrated air defense capabilities along the southern axis. Along the northern axis, Israel and the Israeli Air Force has predominantly been working integrated air defense targets along the northern flank, as well as medium-range ballistic missile capability as well. From the sea, the USS Ford has continued to project combat power here, as well as the bomber pulses that we talked about in the opening days of this briefing. Along the southern axis, the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group has continued to provide pressure from the sea along the southeastern side of the coast and has been attriting naval capability all along the strait and up into the Arabian Gulf at a size and scale sufficiently to address the targets required. To date, we've hit over 2,000 targets, as Admiral Cooper said in his video last night. We've destroyed more than 20 Iranian naval vessels, including, in addition to the frigate outside of the area, one submarine, and effectively neutralized at this point in time Iran's major naval presence in theater out there. As the Secretary showed the video, for the first time since 1945, a United States Navy fast attack submarine has sunk an enemy combatant ship using a single Mark 48 torpedo to achieve immediate effect, sending the warship to the bottom of the sea. I want to remind everybody that this is an incredible demonstration of America's global reach. To hunt, find, and kill an out-of-area deployer is something that only the United States can do at this type of scale. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, CENTCOM will continue to strike infrastructure and naval capability, and we'll continue to assess our progress against the military objectives. It does take time for us to collect that information and to assess en route. Much of our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capability is currently hunting and killing ballistic missile launchers and one-way attack capability. We're precise in that assessment, and we call balls and strikes in that assessment. We take that matter seriously. Iran, on the other hand, has been indiscriminate and more imprecise in their attacks. They fired more than 500 ballistic missiles and more than 2,000 drones, striking innocent civilian targets throughout the region. Our partners are answering the call to defend themselves right alongside us. Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait are all defending their people with their own combat capability, with precision and restraint. Jordanian air defense crews recently intercepted a cluster of Iranian one-way attack drones headed to Amman. Bahrain's air defense forces shot down an inbound drone approaching Manama's maritime infrastructure, protecting both their population and critical shipping lanes. Saudi Patriot batteries stopped a salvo of ballistic missiles aimed at energy facilities near Dhahran. The UAE neutralized multiple drones targeting Abu Dhabi's industrial zone, demonstrating speed and precision. And Qatari fighters for the first time have shot down 2 Iranian bombers that were en route to their location. Together, these nations are helping to defend themselves and project power as required against the enemy. We're 100 hours in. It's still very early, as the Secretary said, but the balance is shifting. We've always got to remember that these operations are complex, dangerous, and far from over. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen remain in harm's way, and we must be clear-eyed that the risk is still high. This is combat. Let us never forget this. As we continue, I ask that we hold all of our deployed teammates in our thoughts, those standing the watch, flying the sorties, sustaining the fight, and carrying our nation's burden. And I'll stop where I started, and that's remembering our 6 fallen who will return home as soon as possible. I remain humbled, grateful, inspired by every day the valor and professionalism of our joint force. They are quiet professionals through and through, out there doing America's work through the day and through the darkness. And with that, I'll take your questions along with the Secretary.
Go ahead.
What do you assess the enemy's control and command status is right now? And can you broadly describe our decisive point in this operation?
Well, I won't describe the decisive point in the operation because that would tell the bad guys what it was.
That's a good question, though.
I appreciate the question. Their C2 structures in a bad way. Admiral Cooper's been continuing to pressure C2 at the IRGC C2 and other military elements, and will continue to do so. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Mary Margaret with the Daily Wire. Couple questions for you and then one for General Kane. Can you tell us more about how we took out the leader who was the leader of the group that was trying to assassinate President Trump? And then Turkey's defense ministry says NATO air defense systems intercepted an Iranian ballistic missile headed towards Turkish airspace. Could this trigger NATO's Article 5, and was it the U.S. who shot it down?
On the first question, we've known for a long time that Iran had intentions on trying to kill President Trump and or other U.S. officials. And while that was not the focus of the effort by any stretch of the imagination, in fact, never raised by the president or anybody else, I ensured and others ensured that those who were responsible for that were eventually part of the target list. It wasn't the beginning of the effort. We were focused on missiles and launchers, and that's the focus. But ultimately, if we had the opportunity to get at those who are trying to get at Americans specifically, we would. And so we eventually had the opportunity to do that from the air. And then on the matter with Turkey, I'll have to get back to you on exactly what the intercept looked like at that. We're aware of that particular engagement, although no sense that it would trigger anything like Article 5. No. Tie, right there. You got a tie on.
Yeah. Thank you. Tom Baker with the BBC. Can you give us an update on what the administration knows, what you know now about the reported strike on a girls' school in southern Iran on Saturday?
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that. Red tie in front.
Just on the basis that with the information you would have, your reconnaissance abilities, ability to gather information, I mean, it's several days on now. So is there any clarity on whose munition this was?
We're investigating it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So there are reports that the administration is considering arming Iranian Kurdish groups. So could you please clarify that whether any such plan has been authorized and whether Congress or regional partners has been notified and consulted?
All I would say is none of our objectives are premised on the support or the arming of any particular force. So what other entities may be doing, we're aware of, but our objectives aren't centered on that. Green, right there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mike Lynn, Washington Times. Can you talk a little bit about the deconfliction process that's going on? You have two parallel operations, Epic Fury and Roaring Lion. How are you making sure they're not interfering with each other?
Sure, I'm happy to take that. Thank you for the question. We have liaison officers on both sides. There are U.S. CENTCOM teammates out in Israel, and there are Israeli Defense Force teammates at the relevant command and control nodes within the U.S. CENTCOM enterprise. Routinely, Admiral Cooper is talking to the IDF Chief of Defense, and I will occasionally speak to him through the arc of this. I've spoken to him a few times already. That allows.
Well, we have been listening to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and the Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Dan Kane, explain the latest on the American operation in Iran. Let's go straight to Washington, D.C. and speak to GBNews presenter and our chief US correspondent, Ben Leo. Ben, a really significant series of announcements there from the Pentagon.
Yes, indeed. Just before we get stuck into that, I was just trying to interpret Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's comments there about the steadfast partner they have in Israel. Was that yet another barb at the likes of the United Kingdom to Keir Starmer? He said Israel was fighting shoulder to shoulder with such a capable ally, and it was a breath of fresh air. We salute your courage and contribution. We've only just begun to fight. We fight to win, and we are winning. Interpret that as you want. I would maybe suggest it was another slight barb at the likes of Keir Starmer. But yeah, elsewhere, lots of questions there in the press conference, not least from one question there centering around a story doing the rounds last night and over into this morning here in Washington, that the CIA is potentially arming thousands of Kurdish fighters to basically launch a ground invasion into Iran to try and spark an uprising. Hegseth there saying we wouldn't comment, but what other entities do, we are aware of. So maybe suggesting that was the case. But it seems to me, from this side of the pond, Nana and Tom, that there is, of course, this raging war in the Middle East. But as far as the administration is concerned, it's a PR war on the streets as well. Hegseth now taking these almost daily briefings about the updates of what's going on in the Middle East as well. The polling at the start of this conflict was terrible for the Trump administration. A majority of Americans are not supporting it. The administration being accused of not doing a good enough job to justify why they needed to launch the attack now. However, polling over the past 24 hours or so shows there is a 50-50 split. There was a new poll from Fox News last night bang on the nail 50-50. And there was another poll from Playbook which showed 49% in favour and 48% of the American public opposed. So whilst, as I said, there is a war in the Middle East, there's this PR war going on as well. And it seems to be that the Trump administration, for now, is turning a corner when it comes to public opinion. Tom, Nana.
Well, how does the UK come across, though? Because Keir Starmer has been criticised. Donald Trump said he's no Churchill. He also had a little bit of swipe about Sadiq Khan, but everyone's focusing on what he said about Keir Starmer. So what's the mood like? Do people recognise what he said about Keir Starmer? Do they even care in the States?
Well, on the Late Show Live last night, we had some guests where I put that question to in the third hour or so when I picked up from Bev. Do you know what? Let's make a clear distinction here. When it comes to the British people and our Labour government and the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who, let's be honest, has a long history of upsetting this Trump administration, going way back before the election in 2024, when we had Labour staffers, I think even one Labour MP, campaigning for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania. You've got issues with the Online Safety Act, Ofcom fining American companies. You've got free speech issues, people being jailed, talks of giving asylum to Brits who are victims of free speech persecution. Then you have the Greenland debacle, then the Iran debacle with the bases, using the RAF bases to launch, and also Diego Garcia as well. So this isn't new. This perception of this Labour government, and again, I stress, to pinpoint the government and separate them from the British people, who President Trump admires greatly. This Labour government has for a long time been perceived in America as a bit of a liability. Again, let's go back to last year when Keir Starmer recognised Palestine as a state during crucial negotiations between Hamas and Israel. Secretary Rubio coming out and saying some months ago that almost scuppered the peace process, that act of virtue signalling with Macron and Starmer. So there's been a long litany of examples where this administration has looked at the UK government, Keir Starmer, and just thought, do you know what, despite the public sort of brotherhood and compliments towards Keir Starmer, the general view for the most part is that the UK government has been a bit of a liability, and in this case, a bit irrelevant when it comes to this war.
Really significant to see that the refusal of use of our bases, particularly Diego Garcia, for any offensive capabilities, even now, only using these bases, or only allowing the Americans to use our bases for defensive capabilities. It seems like we're sort of doing this whole operation with one hand tied behind our backs, and yet Pete Hegseth standing at that podium today announcing that they have sunk the prize ship of the Iranians, that they have, of course, destroyed the meeting of the accession council that was due to select the next Ayatollah, that those individuals are either dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers. It sounds like the American administration, despite Britain's non-compliance to some extent, is celebrating a series of successes.
Yes, and Hegseth and the general there talking about how they downed one Iranian frigate using a torpedo, which according to them was the first time that's happened since, I think, the Second World War, they said, using a torpedo. So Hegseth saying, we've only just begun to fight, we're 100 or so hours into this, we're fighting to win, and we are winning. And do you know what? When you listen to, and I'm sure viewers and listeners will agree with this point, but when you listen to the sort of clarity and the intention of what Pete Hegseth is saying, and the energy and the ambition behind what he's saying, and then you compare it to somebody again like Keir Starmer, who was videoed and filmed speaking to RAF personnel in Cyprus some days ago. It's a stark contrast, just the energy. You know, I think you can probably, Nana, you probably know what I mean, Tom, you as well. Just the energy and the intent and the authority and the ambition about what they're saying. Compare it to Keir Starmer and some of our Labour government, it's worlds apart.
Yeah, Ben Leo, we all know what you're saying, frankly. I mean, he looked like a Thunderbirds puppet. There's nothing moving apart from his mouth. Thank you very much, Ben Leo. Apologies, Keir, but that's just how it looked. I'm sure what was coming out of your mouth was perfectly reasonable. Right, lots more coming up on today's show.
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Yes, in an extraordinary attack on the Prime Minister, Donald Trump criticises the lack of support for the war in Iran. But Downing Street insists that Britain will act only in its national interest and legal frameworks, of course, even as this diplomatic rift reverberates through the defence circles on both sides of the Atlantic. Well, is this the beginning of the end of the special relationship?
Yes, well, all of that and much more to come. Big question, what do you think? You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Fog across a large part of England will slowly clear this morning. Warm sunny spells then follow, albeit with some patchy cloud and some spots of rain coming into the northwest as the day progresses, courtesy of this fairly weak at first weather front. Ahead of that front, clouds thickening for Scotland and Northern Ireland, freshening breeze as well. Patchy cloud here and there elsewhere, especially where we've got the fog through the morning. That's going to only slowly lift into the afternoon. But where we've got sunshine developing, it's going to feel very warm indeed, and in some places 16 to 18 Celsius is possible, but it's going to feel cooler along that east coast, particularly where we've got the lingering fog, and cooler across Scotland and Northern Ireland as the breeze picks up and as the cloud thickens. Some light showers at first for central and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, but that rain will turn heavier and more persistent as the night wears on. Clear spells predominantly for England and Wales, and for much of the night it remains clear across a large part of central and southeastern UK. Towards the west, the clouds continue to roll in and it turns wet for Northern Ireland as well as western Scotland during the early hours. As that rain moves in, it's going to remain mild in the north and the west, but a bit cooler towards the central and southeastern part of the UK. Again, with some mist and fog to begin things on Thursday, but plenty of sunshine soon returning for the Midlands, the east and southeast. Western England, Wales, cloudier skies, 1 or 2 spots of rain later, but it's a damp day for Northern Ireland, much of central and western Scotland, and feeling colder as that rain continues. Bye.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M60 clockwise between junctions 12 and 13, a load spillage has shut one lane. On Northamptonshire's M1 northbound between junctions 27 and 28, roadworks have one lane closed. On the M6 northbound between junctions 14 and 15, a shed load is blocking 3 lanes with delays of around 2 hours. On the A14 westbound, between junction 55 at Copdock and junction 52 at Claydon, a crash has closed all lanes. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Northern are delayed, including Preston to Wigan North Western and Buxton to Stockport. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is now 20 to 2. And of course, critical headlines are emanating from Donald Trump saying this yesterday for the Prime Minister, not backing his war on Iran.
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
More like Thunderbirds. What's his name from the Thunderbird? And remember when Winston Churchill said this in 1946?
This means a special relationship between the British Commonwealth and Empire and the United States of America.
Well, is the special relationship not so special now? And should Britain feel more outraged about an American president insulting our Prime Minister?
Well, to discuss this, we're joined by former Labour advisor Paul Richard and also former Conservative Deputy Speaker and MP Nigel Evans. All right, I'm going to start with you, Paul Richards. Keir Starmer, I mean, a lot of people would agree with Donald Trump's analogy. What do you think?
Well, I think that he's standing up for Britain's interests, which is the job we pay him to do. The opinion polls suggest that about half the country is sceptical about Trump's war, which is about the same as we had last time round with Iraq. And I think for Trump to start insulting our Prime Minister, I don't know what he thinks that's going to do. But, you know, he's not our dad, you know what I mean? We shouldn't have to sort of worry about his praise and whether he likes us or not. You know, our Prime Minister is there to protect British interests, which is what he's demonstrably doing.
How? Sorry, by making an enemy of the United States?
Well, they're not an enemy. We are still lockstep with our American ally.
What after that?
But I would say that he is somebody who wants to observe international law, and I think that's not an unreasonable position for the British Prime Minister to adopt, because international law should still count for something.
Can I just ask one more time, what does international law say about murdering 30,000 people in one hit, sort of 2 days?
International law says you can't just launch assaults on other countries that are members of the UN without some sort of legal framework to do that. Now, it could well be we're in a situation now that Cyprus has been attacked, that we're in a different situation than we were a few days ago. But for Trump just to sort of start, insulting our Prime Minister, the patriotic response for that is to back our PM against the American.
Now, Nigel, what do you make of the accusation that some people just want Britain to be Donald Trump's poodle?
What, the 51st state? I thought that was going to be Greenland. I think there's a lot of people in Britain that wishes it was the 51st state. But no, the reality... It was lovely listening to that Winston Churchill clip, by the way, talking about the Commonwealth, because irrespective of what Paul says, it didn't take Australia, a Commonwealth friend of ours, or Canada, a Commonwealth friend of ours, to get behind Donald Trump and say this is exactly the right thing to do. And I thought Kemi was brilliant. On PMQs today, she said, listen, we're at war with Iran. Let's get on with it, right? And we are. They've attacked our bases in Bahrain and Cyprus. So that may be Keir's get-out-of-jail card so that he can flip-flop again on another thing and say, OK, all right, fair enough. Instead of reaching for the phone and calling lawyers, he should have reached for the phone and called Donald Trump and said, what do you want us to do to support this action? When you look at the morality of it, it doesn't take a lawyer to work out which side you should be on. Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, as you say, you talk about the 30,000 that were killed recently, these brave young people that are rising against the regime of Ali Khamenei. So you've got that on the one side, and then the people who have been repressed for over 40 years. And I remember reading in the Sunday Times once about two young gay guys. They were accused of being gay. We're not quite sure whether they were or they weren't, but they were hung for it. And the peace was chilling. And I'm really delighted to say that when I was chair of the Interparliamentary Union, I took on the Iranian delegation when we had meetings in Geneva. I mean, they've got form. And quite frankly, I am absolutely delighted Ali Khamenei is no longer the head of that particular nation. And I can see Paul nodding, right? There's a ton of people out there, Paul, that say this and nod and say, right, we're glad he's not there because he's a nasty man, vile. And there's a few others below him too. Yeah. But the fact is, America has now done something about it. And now we're relying on America to basically carry on taking action whilst our bases are being bombed in Cyprus and in Bahrain.
Two things to that, Nigel. One is you do need a framework of international law. This is not the Wild West. And second of all, you need a clear exit strategy. The different voices from the American administration are saying totally different things about what the war aims are. Yeah. I think Starmer is right, like Wilson was in Vietnam, to just hold back and make sure there is a clear, defined war aim, because at the moment there is not, and they're all disagreeing with each other, and Trump in particular is being particularly indistinct as to what it is this is all about. Hegseth is saying something different, and I think I'm glad the grown-ups are in charge, frankly.
Oh, come on.
There's two ways of approaching this, Nana. You can either run to Twitter and just start tweeting from a hip, you know, like a lot of the political leaders did. I think Kemi lowered the tone utterly today, by the way. Or you can be the grown-up in the room. You convene Cobra. You take advice from your generals.
But by that that time, you can find that you're in the midst of a war, which Keir Starmer has taken a very, very long time to do. The HMS Dragon is going to take, I think it's about 5 days to get to Cyprus. Had Keir Starmer acted initially, then it would be pretty much there. But now, it's almost like he doesn't understand how war works.
I don't think that's fair.
You can't just be going straight to the lawyers, do we do lawyers, this, that. He needs to have some sort of leadership qualities. Where are they?
Well, I think he is showing leadership by not just running out to social media. He's actually deliberating upon the situation. Don't forget the RAF Typhoons are in the air and they're knocking missiles out of the sky. So it's not like the RAF is sitting on its hands.
Yes, but he didn't agree to that straight away, did he? He said nothing. He didn't want to do anything first, and then he agreed to the
when there was a clear
there.
need to defend British sovereign territory, then of course the RAF was deployed immediately.
Yeah, but the reality as well is that we've got no military assets in the region at all, which has got to be incredibly worrying. You say he didn't rush to social media, but he did, saying that we can't have regime change from the skies.
Well, who disagrees with that?
Also,
you can't have
but also, I'll tell you what you can't do either, is allow this organisation that has had terrorists' actions by proxy over decades.
But nobody's a fan of Iran. Nobody's suggesting they should still be there. I'm glad they were.
You're not going to defeat that with press releases or Twitters or anything like that. You literally have got to take action, and that's what Donald Trump has done, and I'm delighted that he did it. Do you know, people like Keir and Ursula von der Leyen, she's there ready with her coiffured hair for any press release or any photo op. They'll do that, but they won't get behind the action that has been taken by the United States. It took the Greeks and the French, Paul. It took the Greeks and the French to put military assets
Paul,
there.
I'm afraid we have run to time, but we'll have to get you two back here, because my goodness me, this is a debate that will go on and on. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come.
Right, well, in Oman, evacuation, the first repatriation flight to bring stranded Brits back home, leaving Muscat International Airport this evening.
But if you're in search of some holiday sunshine, perhaps not as far as Cyprus, here are the European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Storm Regina's bringing further unsettled weather to parts of Spain throughout this week. It's also fairly unsettled in the Canary Islands. Risk of rain for Tenerife throughout much of this week. But here's Storm Regina bringing heavy bursts of rain to eastern areas of Spain through Wednesday and Thursday. It does look to remain unsettled here into the weekend too. But for the Mediterranean, plenty of clear sunshine. It's quite warm here as well into the weekend. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes & Co. with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. The British government has chartered a repatriation flight from Oman to help British nationals stuck there.
Right, well, we're joined now by the CEO of Business Travel Association, Clive Ratton. Clive, so have you ever dealt with any of these sort of repatriation flights? And also, what's the sort of general procedure for them? How do they get all the British nationals there? And how do they decide who goes on which flight, etc.?
Yeah, it's pretty tricky, and it has happened a number of occasions in the past, both for events such as the volcanic ash, but also when, sadly, some tour operators have gone bust and the aircraft are then chartered by the government to bring people home. So it is very much around those that are registered and then getting your name to the front of the list in many ways. And I know the government will be prioritising those with young children and medical needs and the vulnerable to get home first, and they will be given that priority, which is done through the government. But of course, there's also the way of getting back on commercial flights, which will hopefully happen as soon as airspace opens. And there are some repatriation flights actually happening as we speak. But the charter flights are managed all through the Department for Transport, and they do have a good history of it, and they work very closely with people such as ourselves, our members, and obviously the people on the ground.
All right, Clive, well, listen, we have literally run out of time, so I think we'll have to leave it there, sadly. Sorry, Clive Ratton. We'll get you back on again to talk some more about that.
Well, that's the CEO of the Business Travel Association, Clive Ratton there. Well, lots going on today. Of course, we've heard breaking news on 3 arrests related to Chinese operations interfering with our democracy. And, of course, the very latest on Iran too. Do stay with us. All of that coming up here on Good Afternoon Britain after your very latest weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Fog across a large part of England will slowly clear this morning. Warm sunny spells then follow, albeit with some patchy cloud and some spots of rain coming into the northwest as the day progresses, courtesy of this fairly weak at first weather front. Ahead of that front, clouds thickening for Scotland and Northern Ireland, freshening breeze as well. Patchy cloud here and there elsewhere, especially where we've got the fog through the morning. That's going to only slowly lift into the afternoon. But where we've got sunshine developing, it's going to feel very warm indeed, and in some places 16 to 18 Celsius is possible, but it's going to feel cooler along that east coast, particularly where we've got the lingering fog, and cooler across Scotland and Northern Ireland as the breeze picks up and as the cloud thickens. Some light showers at first for central and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, but that rain will turn heavier and more persistent as the night wears on. Clear spells predominantly for England and Wales, and for much of the night it remains clear across a large part of central and southeastern UK. Towards the west, the clouds continue to roll in and it turns wet for Northern Ireland as well as western Scotland during the early hours. As that rain moves in, it's going to remain mild in the north and the west, but a bit cooler towards the central and southeastern part of the UK. Again, with some mist and fog to begin things on Thursday, but plenty of sunshine soon returning for the Midlands, the east and southeast. Western England, Wales, cloudier skies, 1 or 2 spots of rain later, but it's a damp day for Northern Ireland, much of central and western Scotland, and feeling colder as that rain continues. Bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
A camper van and cash could be yours in our very latest Great British Giveaway. You could be driving away in this brand new Benavan 122. This 2026 model, worth over £67,000, comes with all of the mod cons you'd expect. And that's not all, as you'll also get an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash to boost your bank account this year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Wednesday, the 4th of March. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akua. In an extraordinary attack on the Prime Minister, Donald Trump criticises the lack of support for war in Iran. But Downing Street insists that the UK will act only in its national interest and legal frameworks, even as this diplomatic rift reverberates through defence circles on both sides of the Atlantic. Is this the beginning of the end of the special relationship?
Row continues. Coming up shortly, I'll have some major breaking news on Britain's involvement in this ongoing war.
And enter the Dragon. HMS Dragon is to set sail to Cyprus, where British assets are being bolstered by security around RAF Akrotiri base. But how long will it take to get there?
Does the Prime Minister agree that it is only right for tax exiles to start paying taxes to fund our armed forces, just like the rest of us do?
Oh, that was hilarious. Sir Ed Davey called for British washed-up old footballers and tax exiles residing in Dubai to pay taxes to help fund the UK's armed forces. Should Dubai tax exiles pay to be protected by the UK?
I will announce the most significant changes to our asylum system in modern times.
The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood will stop study visas for Afghanistan, Cameroon, Myanmar and Sudan, saying those countries exploited the system.
The Security Minister Dan Jarvis told the House of Commons that 3 men have been arrested on suspicion of spying for China. One of 3 men arrested is reportedly the partner of a Labour MP. We'll have the latest.
And the Ulster farming scandal. The Agricultural Minister of Northern Ireland is facing calls to resign after a GB News report into abuse on government-funded farms.
Not only that, a report has come out that has put him under pressure, but he has also confirmed in the chamber that he will pick the media that he wants to speak to.
And now, just to say, I wasn't laughing at the bombs being dropped. I was actually laughing at Sir Ed Davey, just to clarify, but I didn't know they were going to put that picture up.
No, well, there is serious news about today, isn't there?
Yeah,
I mean, it feels like the world has shifted up a gear in terms of the severity of world affairs. Not just the war in the Middle East, but now a scandal of not just Chinese spying, but interfering in British democracy. Those are the words that were used by the Security Minister.
Yeah, and I'm not speculating. I hear that some of those arrested may have, I won't say anymore, actually, because I'll get myself in trouble. But let's put it this way, those who told us the grown-ups were back in the room. I'm not impressed with Keir Starmer's leadership at all, I've got to say. I do agree with, that he is no Winston Churchill, and Churchill did warn, one of the big things he warned was that, stay close to your allies, never be out of step with America.
It's remarkably quickly that we all forgot the China spy scandal. That case that collapsed with regard to 2 accused Chinese spies in Britain. The government was accused of handling that improperly. The case collapses, and then, what are we, only a few months later, and now 3 arrests of individuals suspected of spying for China and suspected of interfering with our democracy. I'm sure they would deny their charges or deny those suspicions, but my goodness me, those 3 arrests, a serious bit of news.
Yeah, so Churchill, his advice was never be separated from the Americans, and I would tend to agree with that one when it comes to war. But send us your thoughts, your comments at gbnews.com/your say. A lot on Keir Starmer's side is saying he's doing a fantastic job. I'm confused, are you? But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Tom, Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The headlines at 4 minutes past 2. America is winning without mercy. That was the update from America's Secretary of State for War, Pete Hegseth, this afternoon, adding that the US will have control of Iran's skies in under a week. His comments come as the war in the Middle East is now in its 5th day. The Israeli military says it's launched a broad wave of strikes in both Lebanon and indeed Iran, focusing on targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in Beirut and the Iranian terror regime in Tehran. Mr. Hegseth went on to say that America can fight for as long as needed, with forces shifting from wide-ranging attacks to deliberately precise strikes. He added that an Iranian warship was sank by a US torpedo in the Indian Ocean. Well, back at home, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said letting the US use UK bases and British jets to shoot down drones in the Middle East is the special relationship in action, while hanging on to President Trump's latest words is not.
American planes are operating out of British bases. That is the special relationship in action. British jets are shooting down drones and missiles to protect American lives in the Middle East on our joint bases. That is the special relationship in action. Sharing intelligence every day to keep our people safe. That is the special relationship in action. Hanging on to President Trump's latest words is not the special relationship in action.
Well, let's bring you up to date with the UK's response to the conflict today. A government charter flight will be available this evening for British nationals wanting to leave Oman. The flight will depart from the country's capital, Muscat, at 7 o'clock tonight and is available for British nationals, their partners and children under 18 with a valid travel document. The Prime Minister confirmed that more than 1,000 British nationals returned from the UAE yesterday, with 8 flights due to land back home today. More charter flights are also expected in the coming days. Sir Keir Starmer says the air defence destroyer HMS Dragon will be sent to the Eastern Mediterranean, adding that the UK is fully committed to the security of Cyprus and British military personnel based there. Some more breaking news this afternoon. 3 men have been arrested on suspicion of spying for China. The Metropolitan Police said that the suspects, aged 39, 43 and 68, were arrested by counter-terrorism officers in London and Wales after being accused of assisting a foreign intelligence service. All 3 men remain in custody and searches have been carried out at the addresses where they were arrested, the force added earlier today. Inquiries remain ongoing. Elsewhere, the government has placed an emergency brake on visas for nationals from 4 countries as Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood accused them of exploiting Britain's generosity to claim asylum. Study visas for nationals from Afghanistan, Cameroon, Myanmar and Sudan have been halted, as have work visas for Afghans. The government claims a growing number of people from these countries are using legal migration routes to then claim asylum in the UK. The Home Office described the suspension as an unprecedented step. Shabana Mahmood said Britain will always provide refuge to people fleeing war and persecution, but our visa system must not be abused. And a think tank has warned that war in the Middle East threatens growth in living standards in the UK, and forecasts published alongside the spring statement are already looking out of date. The Resolution Foundation, responding to the Chancellor's spring statement, said that the immediate economic outlook for Britain is highly uncertain. Yesterday, Rachel Reeves delivered her statement to the House of Commons, saying that the government's economic plans are the right ones. She went on to add that Labour has ensured economic stability and security, with 6 cuts to interest rates since the general election and real wages rising. Those are the latest GBNews headlines. I'll take a quick look at the all-important markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
The pound will buy you $1.3379 and €1.1487. The price of gold is £3,884.97 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 10,575 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 9 minutes after 2 o'clock. Now, Western officials have told GB News that the US has not launched any strikes on Iran from British bases since permission was granted. It is anticipated that this will change, with American bombers expected to arrive at RAF Fairford soon.
Well, a significant change coming down the line. Let's get more with our national reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, significant changes.
Absolutely, Tom and Nana. And throughout this briefing, Western officials were keen to stress that we should not rule anything out in terms of the US allies and their support for the US war in Iran, obviously supporting Israel, that we should not rule anything out. Now, we're being told by these Western officials that American bombing campaigns have not been launched from British bases. That will include RAF Fairford, Lakenheath, Mildenhall in Suffolk, but also Diego Garcia, that base in the Indian Ocean territory, the Chagos Islands, which would have been of the greatest use to the United States at the start of the bombing campaign. They had to fly 37 hours from Missouri with their B-2 stealth bombers. That's a round trip that was conducted on the Saturday night. 4 stealth bombers flying 7,000 miles to conduct those bombing raids. If they had been granted permission by Sir Keir Starmer to do those raids from British bases, that mission could have been completed in around 8 hours flying from Diego Garcia. Instead, they were put at greater strain with that extended reach. But these Western officials have told us that the US is expected to start launching strikes on Iranian targets from UK bases soon, and we're also anticipating the arrival of American bombers at RAF Fairford in the coming days. Our colleague Tom Fredericks attending this briefing, also hearing that these officials said that Iran will run out of ballistic missiles in the coming days if they continue to fire at their current rates. They have been dipping significantly in terms of the firepower that's been used by the Iranians in terms of their ballistic missile rate. On the first day, they fired about 350 ballistic missiles, major barrages across Israel, the UAE, Bahrain and Qatar. But yesterday, day 4, there were about 50 in the low dozens. So severely degraded capabilities, as we've seen these American and Israeli strikes targeting the transported Erector launchers. Those are the bases that fire, the platforms that fire so many of these ballistic missiles out of underground bunkers. But we've also seen in footage released by the United States' CENTCOM, their Central Command, which has the operational area of responsibility for the Middle East. We've also seen the IDF releasing footage of strikes on ballistic missile supplies. So it's estimated that if they continue at that rate, they'll run out in a few days. But the significance of that for us in Britain, Nana and Tom, is that Iran, of course, still has an extensive production capability of those Shahed Martyr drones. They only cost about $50,000 to make. They only weigh about 50 kilograms, but they can fly at 185 kilometers an hour, have the capability to reach, as we've seen, RAF at Krotiri, it appears, without much notice at all for the personnel at that base. And as the ballistic missile supplies reduce, the threat to the wider region, that is to Israel, will reduce. But the threat to the Gulf, the UAE, Qatar and Bahrain will continue to exist because those drones can reach those targets. We've seen them landing at the US consul in Riyadh and in Dubai in recent days. And also, we've seen that they've been fired from Lebanon towards British sovereign territory. So what do we need to counter that and reduce that threat? Well, the IDF continuing to strike those facilities in Lebanon, targeting command and control centres, also defence facilities used by Hezbollah in Lebanon. I've also just got an update from the Reuters news agency that some IDF soldiers, 2 of them, have been injured after an anti-tank missile was fired at troops in southern Lebanon. You're seeing the Israel-Lebanon border pictures there. Back to Tehran now, the destruction that was put over there over the weekend. And we're also able to confirm, reporting that we have been running all morning, which is that our warship, HMS Dragon, will not be deployed until next week. We can now confirm that at GB News, that HMS Dragon will not be deployed until next week. Yesterday, GB News sources told us that a warship would be ready to go no earlier than 24 hours. We now can confirm that HMS Dragon will not deploy until early next week. We've been reporting that since last night and all morning, but it can now be confirmed. The reason for this is that HMS Dragon has been rushed out of a maintenance period and was previously set to take part in operations in the high north. HMS Duncan, the other available Type 45 destroyer, was also set for operations as part of NATO's Maritime Group 1. Both assets were going down a path of different operations. It was understood that options were presented to the government by the Navy to redirect one of these warships towards the eastern Mediterranean, but both the NATO exercise and deployment and, of course, that operation in the high north, that is defending Greenland after concerns raised by Donald Trump in January, those were considered priorities. There will now be serious questions, Tom and Nana, for Western officials, for British military planners, and indeed for Ministry of Defence ministers and the Prime Minister as to why both of those Type 45 destroyers that had the capability to head to the Eastern Mediterranean were not deployed amid this heavily telegraphed invasion by the United States, the heavily telegraphed bombing campaign. If there was a manufacturing or a maintenance reason that was preventing them from heading out. We know that HMS Dragon has been rushed through a refit and has been gathering ammunition today. HMS Duncan was doing the same yesterday. If there is a technical reason behind that, then I think we need to hear that from ministers or the MOD very soon, because as it stands, with it taking about 5 to 7 days for a destroyer, travelling about 35 miles per hour, to get from Portsmouth to the Eastern Mediterranean, our personnel and our assets on that sovereign territory of Cyprus will be unprotected by British assets. At the moment, Tom and Nana, we are relying on the Hellenic Navy of Greece, we're relying on the US, we're relying on Israel to defend RAF, Akrotiri and Cyprus from ballistic missiles, and also we're waiting for the French to turn up. They'll get there before we do.
Really significant goings on there. Charlie Pieces, thanks indeed for bringing us that news. Just extraordinary that we only had 2 available destroyers. And of course, many different concerns and places to send them. I think longer-term questions, actually, about how many destroyers we actually have available in our dwindling Navy.
Oh, no, it's really sad. Well, listen, we're joined now by GB News presenter and our chief US correspondent, Ben Leo. Ben Leo, so in this country, in the UK, there seem to be people who are saying, and I'm hearing a lot of it, that 50% of the people in this country think that Keir Starmer's doing a great job in sort of saying no to Trump initially, then yes, then no, yes, but no, but yes. But in America, of course, President Trump appears to be elevating again because they're seeing a strong leader. What does it look like from where you are with regards to Keir Starmer?
Yeah, well, that's always been the perception, the sort of Rick, in the past couple of days, that Trump's attacks on Keir Starmer will actually do him a favour, because the consensus is, I'm not sure if I agree with it, but the consensus is that President Trump isn't too favoured in the United Kingdom. This side of the pond, though, as I said a bit earlier this morning to you, Tom and Nana, and viewers and listeners, when you listen to the kind of the intent and the authority behind the likes of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and what President Trump is trying to achieve here, the kind of language and the aura around the operation is worlds away from the likes of Keir Starmer and the Labour government. And they look at the Labour government, as I was saying to you a short while ago, and they just kind of think we're just a little bit irrelevant at the moment. And the fact that it's going to be taking more than a week to get that Type 45 over to Cyprus to defend our own personnel is, I mean, let's be honest about it, it's embarrassing to say the least. This morning, there are some economic woes potentially on the horizon for President Trump. And I think as this war rages on, and President Trump and Hegseth this morning saying that it could go on for as long as they need to, they have the capability and power to keep bombing Iran. As it goes on, you'd have to start wondering about how it ends, any potential off-ramps. One potential off-ramp or one potential cornering manoeuvre that President Trump may find himself in is the economy. Gas prices are now above $3 in most states here in the United States, and that was one key achievement, one big win that they were taking victory laps over in recent months. The fact that in most US states, gas prices at the pumps were now below $3. They've now ticked up over $3, of course, because of the increase in oil prices in the past couple of days. In the UK, that is also taking effect. The OBR in the past couple of moments saying that inflation in the UK in 2027 could tick 1% higher than previously forecast if the recent increase in oil prices is sustained. That will, of course, present a massive headache to Keir Starmer and not least Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, as well. And if that wasn't enough, Tom, Nana, viewers and listeners, Scott Bessent, who is the US Treasury Secretary, has also come out in the past couple of moments and saying that the US will hit its trade partners, including the United Kingdom, with those 15% tariffs as soon as this week. So, of course, if you remember a few weeks back, President Trump lost that pretty crucial Supreme Court ruling on his tariffs from last year, the so-called Liberation Day tariffs, where he slapped countries all around the world with different rates. The UK, of course, ended up being a 10% recipient on tariffs. The Supreme Court ruled those illegal. As a result, President Trump was forced to manoeuvre and find different pieces of legislation to enforce them still. And as a result of that, if you remember, the globe, every country on earth was being slapped with these 15% default tariffs at the hands of the administration here in the US. Well, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has just come out and said that those 15% tariffs will be applied, quote unquote, sometime this week. And that includes the United Kingdom. So billions and billions of pounds worth of levies raised on UK exports to the US as a result. And you combine that with concerns over ticking up inflation off the back of increased oil prices, gas prices particularly. Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, feeling the effects of this Middle East war, even if we haven't been, as a country, yet quite directly involved.
All right. Okay. Well, Ben Leo, thanks indeed for being there in Washington, D.C. for us. Of course, our chief American correspondent there.
Thank you, Ben. Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain, 21 minutes after 2 o'clock. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed that Britain will deploy HMS Dragon and helicopters with anti-drone capabilities in Cyprus, though not until next week, and they'll take perhaps 7 days to get there. But after the break...
Does the Prime Minister agree it is only right for tax exiles to start paying taxes to fund our armed forces just like the rest of us do?
Sir Ed Davey calling for British washed-up old footballers and tax exiles residing in Dubai to pay taxes to help fund the UK's armed forces. Should Dubai tax exiles pay to be protected by the UK?
Well, all of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 25 minutes past 2. And as a surge of Brits rush to leave the Middle East amidst the Iran war, The leader of the Liberal Democrats declared that tax exiles, his words, living in Dubai should pay to receive protection by Britain.
Yes, speaking in the House of Commons, Sir Ed Davey said that although we have a duty to protect those abroad, expats living in the UAE should pay their taxes to benefit from protection. Take a listen to what he had to say.
We rightly expect our brave armed forces to protect British citizens around the world in crises like this. But that includes tax exiles like Isabel Oakeshott and washed-up old footballers who mock ordinary people who stay in the UK and pay our taxes here. So as we protect them, does the Prime Minister agree it is only right for tax exiles to start paying taxes to fund our armed forces just like the rest of us do?
Astonishing, isn't it? Really?
Well, shall we get the thoughts now of a former Liberal Democrat councillor, Matthew Hulbert? Matthew, a bit of a strange call there from the leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Well, absolutely. Well, great to be with you, Tom and Nana. Always good to see you. Well, on this, I'm afraid my leader is wholly wrong. My sister, brother-in-law and family live out in Dubai. They have done for many years. I've been very fortunate to go and visit them a number of times. They've worked very hard for what they have out there. They're not tax exiles. An opportunity came up for my brother-in-law many, many years ago, and they've built a wonderful life in Dubai. They ask nothing of no one. They've not asked for any help from the UK government since the start of this crisis. The UAE government is looking after them perfectly well. So I'm afraid I just don't know where my leader is coming from.
Well, I mean, he could be coming from it from the point of view that a lot of them are, I think it almost feels like the politics of envy. They're quite wealthy, they've gone off there, they've paid taxes in the UK, but some people have specifically gone because they can't stand the sight of the taxes in this country. What about those people?
I mean, look, I have a bit of sympathy for my leader if he's saying that people have left to go to Dubai for that reason, because I think it's a patriotic thing to stay in your country and to pay tax. That wasn't the case with my family. An opportunity came up for them many years ago, I'm talking decades ago, to go out to the Middle East, and they built a wonderful life there. And yes, the tax situation there is what it is. I don't deny it for a second. But all I would say is that, you know, my brother and my brother-in-law and sister and my family are totally self-sustaining. They've got to fund their retirement when they reach that age. They're asking nothing off no one. So I don't know what my leader's problem is.
It does seem strange, though, even if people choose to move their lives to a different jurisdiction and follow that jurisdiction's tax laws. I mean, it has never been the policy of this government to not provide protection to our own citizens. I mean, your family aside, Matthew, for a second, if someone has chosen to move jurisdiction and tax has factored into their decision, as I'm sure it has with many people, what about the principle, the fundamental principle that with regard to anyone, the British passport does convey protection?
I wholly agree with you, Tom, and I also wonder where this leaves our policy on, for example, people who claim welfare in this country and who may not pay any tax. Are we saying that as a party that they shouldn't receive state benefits? Are we saying that, and this is where probably me and you two disagree, but are we saying that you know, people who come here from other countries, you know, migrants can receive no state aid because they don't pay tax? I mean, I don't know if my party leader...
Well, that would make this sound like a great idea, Matthew.
Yeah, it does sound great to me, actually. I think if people come here and they are you know, migrants, illegal migrants in particular, or legal migrants, even if you're not a British citizen, then I don't think you should be entitled to benefits if you're not a British citizen. I think that sounds fair to me. Does that sound fair to you, Matthew?
Well, I'm afraid, you know, as you might expect, this is where we part ways. I think that we should have compassion that people for people who come here fleeing from potentially very difficult situations. But I don't think my leader appears on this occasion, very rare that I criticise him, but I don't think on this occasion he has thought through the full consequences of what he's saying. And he's been pilloried on social media, and perhaps quite rightly.
Just before we let you go, Matthew, do you think that this is a bit of a punchier Ed Davey? Because ultimately we've seen the Lib Dems flatline, if not slightly decline in the polls in the course of the last 12 months. People are speculating over a leadership challenge to Sir Ed Davey, and it's been the Green Party that's jumped upon what used to be the Lib Dems' role as sort of the conscience of the Labour government, the anti-war campaigning party of Charlie Kennedy. I mean, looking at where the Greens are in the polls now, that was the Lib Dem surge back in 2005 in response to the Iraq War. And when it comes to this war in Iran, the Lib Dems are nowhere to be seen or heard.
No, and of course, you know, that was back under our former dearly departed leader, Charles Kennedy, my favourite ever leader of my party, it has to be said. Look, I'd encourage Ed to be punchier, but I think he needs to think through what he's saying. And I think this was just a very easy throwaway populist line, and it seems to have gone down, if I can say so, Tom, like a bucket of cold sick.
Yeah, I think you're right with that, Matthew. Matthew Holbert, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. He's a former Liberal Democrat councillor.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's still plenty more to come on today's programme.
Ulster farming scandal. The Agricultural Minister of Northern Ireland is facing calls to resign after a GB News report into abuse on government-funded farms.
Well, all of that and much more to come after your very latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 2:31. America is winning without mercy. That was the update of America's Secretary of State for War, Pete Hegseth, this afternoon, adding that the US will have control of Iran's skies in under a week. Back at home, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said letting the US use UK bases and British jets shooting down drones in the Middle East is the special relationship in action, while hanging on to President Trump's latest words is not. Well, US bombers are set to strike Iran from British bases soon, according to officials, with bombers expected to arrive at RAF Fairford. Elsewhere, the UK is increasing its air defences at its base in Cyprus by deploying HMS Dragon. Reportedly, the ship won't be deployed until next week. More breaking news this afternoon. 3 men have been arrested under the National Security Act on suspicion of spying for China. The Metropolitan Police said the suspects, aged 39, 43 and 68, were arrested by counter-terrorism officers in London and Wales after being accused of assisting a foreign intelligence service. And the government has placed an emergency brake on visas for nationals from 4 countries as Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood accused them of exploiting Britain's generosity to claim asylum. Study visas for nationals from Afghanistan, Cameroon, Myanmar and Sudan have been halted, as have work visas for Afghans. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news with Tatiana at the top of the hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon, Britain. 33 minutes after 2 o'clock. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed Britain will deploy HMS Dragon and helicopters with anti-drone capabilities in Cyprus. But they won't get there for nearly 2 weeks.
Oh dear. All of that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Fog across a large part of England will slowly clear this morning. Warm sunny spells then follow, albeit with some patchy cloud and some spots of rain coming into the northwest as the day progresses, courtesy of this fairly weak at first weather front. Ahead of that front, clouds thickening for Scotland and Northern Ireland, freshening breeze as well. Patchy cloud here and there elsewhere, especially where we've got the fog through the morning. That's going to only slowly lift into the afternoon. But where we've got sunshine developing, it's going to feel very warm indeed, and in some places 16 to 18 Celsius is possible, but it's going to feel cooler along that east coast, particularly where we've got the lingering fog, and cooler across Scotland and Northern Ireland as the Breeze picks up, and as the cloud thickens, some light showers at first for central and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, but that rain will turn heavier and more persistent as the night wears on. Clear spells predominantly for England and Wales, and for much of the night it remains clear across a large part of central and southeastern UK. Towards the west, the clouds continue to roll in and it turns wet for Northern Ireland as well as western Scotland during the early hours. As that rain moves in, it's going to remain mild in the north and the west, but a bit cooler towards the central and southeastern part of the UK. Again, with some mist and fog to begin things on Thursday, but plenty of sunshine soon returning for the Midlands, the east and southeast. Western England, Wales, cloudier skies, 1 or 2 spots of rain later, but it's a damp day for Northern Ireland, much of central and western Scotland, and feeling colder as that rain continues. Bye.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A470 near Rhyadr, an accident is causing disruption in both directions, with local diversions in place. On the M6 northbound between Junction 14 and Junction 15, a shed load has shut 3 of 4 lanes, with delays of around 2 hours and clearing expected after 7 this evening. Also, the A34 northbound between the A423 near Kennington and the A44 is running slowly with heavy congestion. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Northern are delayed between Preston and Wigan Northwestern. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past 2. Now, criticism is increasing over the lack of a Royal Naval presence in the Middle East.
The government has now announced that they will deploy HMS Dragon, but that the vessel will not leave for Cyprus until next week.
Well, that means that that Britain may have to rely on allies, perhaps will have to rely on allies to protect RAF Akrotiri until then.
Well, let's speak to our GB News South of England reporter Isabel Fekulak, who's in Portsmouth with HMS Dragon. Isabel, what can you tell us about it?
Good afternoon, Tom and Nana. Well, behind me you can see HMS Dragon here in His Majesty's Naval Base in Portsmouth. It's currently at the Upper Harbour Ammunition Facility, which is where weapons are unloaded and loaded onto the ship. So it's likely that it's been taking on air defence missiles and other munitions today. We know that it's been in a maintenance period as it's previously set for operations in the High North, and it looks like today there's been preparations underway. There's been fueling ships looking like it's getting fueled and ready, crew on board seemingly working on the ship, and there's some scaffolding on board as well at the bottom of the funnel there. So we know that it's getting ready to go, and we can confirm that it won't be leaving until next week, and when it does leave it will take an extra 5 to 7 days to get to Cyprus, where it will join French and Greek vessels there. And as there's no current British major vessel in the Mediterranean, it should be a matter of urgency to get this out at sea. But from Portsmouth here, I can tell you that it doesn't look like it's going to be setting sail anytime soon.
All right, Isabel Fekulak, thank you very much. Great pictures there as well. Looking fantastic, but it looks like it's sort of marooned there, doesn't it? Isabel, thank you.
Well, joining us now is the former Royal Navy officer, Stuart Fawcett. Stuart, thanks indeed for being with us. Tell us a little bit about a Royal Naval destroyer. You've served on ships like this?
I used to serve on HMS Diamond, which is the sister ship to HMS Dragon. And the Type 45 destroyer was heralded as a real breakthrough in anti-air capability when it was brought in the early 2000s. Now, we were going to be expecting around 12 then, but that was reduced to 6 eventually. And the reason why we needed more was because of exactly the situation you see HMS Dragon in now, which is warships are essentially restricted by their maintenance requirements. So the HMS Dragon that you see here probably would have been in a fleet time maintenance period because the sea takes its toll, things need fixing. Where you see her now, having moved hastily to the UHAF, which is where ammunition comes on board, she'll be taking on munitions. That's the final point before she can embark. But the Type 45 in itself, when we think about maintenance, having served in one off the coast of Iran as part of maritime operations there alongside the US Navy, has been troubled by maintenance problems in its design. It was a new type of design using high voltage drive and propulsion systems which had differed from destroyers in the past. And it marked a change in new, much higher technology that the MOD was looking for. But as I say, that doctrine has been challenged by the fact that such high technology is often challenged by these problems.
But at the same time, it's this very technology that makes this ship so useful in and around Cyprus, the ability to spot tiny drones from a very, very, very far distance.
You're absolutely right. So the air defence radar on here, the Samson Air Defence Radar, at one point, and probably still is, probably the most cutting-edge piece of technology for anti-air defence in the world. So that could hit a target the size of a cricket ball at Mach 2 from quite considerable...
So that's twice the speed of sound.
Indeed.
The size of a cricket ball.
And that is incredible. But it has to do that when it's working. A capability is only a capability if it's working and deployable, and that has been the challenge here. And now HMS Dragon's sister ships have deployed this in the Red Sea against Houthi rebels that have been using drones out there. So it is a very... The situation we have is, with the Royal Navy at present, is that we have a lot of maintenance requirements of our ships that has meant that they need to be in home port. And where we really need them, where the threats that are posed to the United Kingdom are in the Middle East or the Eastern Mediterranean.
Why are they... So why, you're saying that basically the reason why all the ships are here in the UK is because they're so high maintenance that there is nowhere else they can be maintained?
So we did have a base in Bahrain. We've just commissioned former Schiffenbein decommissioned HMS Lancaster that was permanently based out there. So we did have that, but we seem to have withdrawn from that operational area. Previously, the Middle East had been the main stomping ground for the Royal Navy, and the reason for that was to protect the oil flow out of the North Arabian Gulf through an area called the Straits of Hormuz. Just to the northwest of there is Bandar Abbas, the main naval base of the Iranian Navy, and importantly, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps naval assets, which were a real threat to shipping out there. They're small craft, they're fast, and if they wanted to escalate, we always knew that they would be a target on merchant shipping. Why Britain has withdrawn from this area, having had such a long commitment to it for that reason, as you now see oil prices are beginning to rise, I'm not quite sure, but it shows why we need a global presence to protect our interests that come home to roost at home.
Do you think it was a mistake of the coalition government, many people criticised this at the time, to pour resources into creating two enormous, expensive aircraft carriers, being one of the only navies in the world that has multiple aircraft carriers on that scale with that specificity, instead of creating many, many more destroyers? It seems like we went almost for a vanity project in the early 2010s. Could that money have been spent better?
I mean, I remember specifically this period because shortly after I joined the Royal Navy, the SDSR cut most of our capabilities, including our aircraft carriers then. And then we suddenly had a situation in Libya and destabilisation there that cost us more because we had to use Italian air bases. And it cost us more than it would have been to maintain the carriers we had. Do I believe that it's a mistake with the large carriers? No, because we had planned on having a much larger escort fleet, which was subsequently cut. And we need to see capabilities like this in terms of carrier strike groups as a whole element. And we need to commit to all of that if we're going to maintain it. And that's where the challenge is.
All right, and then very briefly, do we actually have the personnel to man these things? Because I remember one time we didn't have enough people, or the right kind of people, to look after it and get on board.
So there has been a huge uptick in recruiting, but we've got an issue within our services that we had a large cut of manpower about 15 years ago, and that is now really proving quite challenging when we need senior skilled roles.
OK, former Royal Naval Officer Stuart Fawcett, thanks indeed for joining us and talking through this tricky situation for the government.
All right, 44 minutes after 2 o'clock. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, a scandal in Ulster farming. The Agricultural Minister of Northern Ireland is facing calls to resign after a GB News report into abuse on government-funded farms.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun across Europe, here are some of the holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Storm Regina's bringing further unsettled weather to parts of Spain throughout this week. It's also fairly unsettled in the Canary Islands. Risk of rain for Tenerife throughout much of this week. But here's Storm Regina bringing heavy bursts of rain to eastern areas of Spain through Wednesday and Thursday. It does look to remain unsettled here into the weekend too. But for the Mediterranean, plenty of clear sunshine. It's quite warm here as well into the weekend. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 to 3. Now, the Northern Ireland Minister of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs is facing calls to resign after a GB News investigation.
Yes, we obtained shocking pictures that show poor animal welfare, pollution and raw sewage on a government farm.
Well, GB News' Northern Ireland reporter Doogie Beattie has this report.
Athby Farms Hillsborough site receives huge amounts of taxpayers' money, and its board is hand-picked by the Minister Andrew Muir. DAERA's policies are tested here and farmers are expected to implement their findings. But it seems that Athby has had problems achieving what they say are workable targets. In May 2025, whistleblowers approached politicians from Minister Moore's Alliance Party with concerns around animal welfare and pollution on the site. And after months of silence, the whistleblowers approached GB News. I have been aware of this story from October last year, but the Executive Information Service have continually blocked or denied any requests for an interview with the Agricultural Minister, Andrew Muir. But in a meeting of the Agricultural Committee, the Chair, Robbie Butler, asked the CEO of AFBI, did he recognise any of the pictures or videos that were put to him.
First question I want to ask is, can you confirm, looking at the pictures and the video that were shared by the whistleblower, if they are indeed animals and machinery and the AFBI premises?
The majority of them we were able to verify on it. I think there may have been one or two that we were maybe less certain about, but I think it's fair to say the majority of them we did identify with.
That shocking admission has angered both politicians and farmers alike, calling for less civil service interference and what farmers see as two-tier enforcement.
We have a particular trail of thought among some career civil servants, which is down the road of increased bureaucracy on businesses. It's unsustainable, it's not practical, it's not even deliverable. We see that with the Climate Change Act. There needs to be a real stop.
Civil servants are running this farm, and there's pollution issues, there's biosecurity issues, and there's animal welfare issues. And if these issues were on any other farm around the country, that farmer would be up in court.
AFBI have not faced any fines or real investigations, but they have had time to release a video inviting all to the site.
AFBI is very happy to host any groups or individuals who wish to visit the site and or discuss our work and site practices.
There's no surprise when I followed up on that invitation, it didn't include me. Dougie Beattie, GB News, Belfast.
Oh, right. Well, GB News' Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie joins us now for more on that. Dougie, these poor animals.
Well, it is poor animals, and this was going on over a 3-year period. We knew it was because AFBI in their own video admitted that that very thing was happening. They also admitted that there was problems during that committee stages as well. But most importantly here, for us as a news channel, the Minister, as I said in that report, the Executive Information Service refused to give us access to the Minister and had to do a 6-month loop round to get to him. But yesterday, under parliamentary privileges, Andrew Muir had this to say when he came under question.
I agree to meet the journalist Dougie Beattie, who has raised these concerns, or will you continue to hide and shy away from scrutiny on this issue?
20 minutes ago.
I'm not hiding, I'm here. Okay, I'm here answering questions. I don't know whether you were in the chamber earlier, but this was raised and I responded to it. And there's a trend in this place where people ask the same question again and again when it's already been responded to.
Minister, back to you.
In relation to meeting GB News, I will meet serious journalists. GB News is neither that.
Well, you can hear from that. I am not a serious journalist. 32 years in the media. I am more than most journalists are alive in Northern Ireland. And actually joining me now is David Urban. David, why are you calling for his resignation?
Well, it's just been one thing after another, Dougie, since he took his ministerial post, and now we have the AFBI thing. We have a confirmed case of pollution by AFBI, that Minister Muir has said, and no repercussions that we can see. If that was another farmer, they'd be plastered all over the news, they'd be fined heavily, they could be prosecuted, animal welfare issues, etc.
Well, there you have it. And if Minister Muir wants to repeat that serious allegation without political party political protection outside the chamber, I'm well up for him.
All right, Dougie, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Man of steel, Dougie Beattie there. Now, the AFBI declined an interview, but they've previously said they undertook an extensive and thorough investigation after concerns were raised which included external expectations by DAERA, the Northern Irish Environment Agency, and
Yes, they stated that the material presented related to incidents over a period of approximately 3 years and that they were aware of any of these incidents.
Well, here's your weather.
Today, clouds overhead.
Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a beautiful day for many of us, plenty of warm sunshine, not for all however. Parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland are generally cloudier with some spots of rain before it turns increasingly damp later as a weather front moves in. That weather front, a weak affair at first, only tending to thicken up the cloud through the evening across many parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Patchy cloud into western parts of England and Wales by the end of the night. And elsewhere, under clear skies, lighter winds, while temperatures will fall away. Another chilly night in some shelter spots for central and southeastern England, and a few mist patches to wake up to, but it's milder towards the west and the north because of the thicker cloud, because it's a breezier start to the day. And we start the day with outbreaks of persistent rain, especially into western Scotland, but some patchy rain moving into the north and east of Scotland. Edinburgh most likely to start dry, albeit cloudy. Northern Ireland, outbreaks of rain most prolonged towards western areas. Belfast seeing the rain more on and off. But for much of England and Wales, it's a bright start once again. Yeah, a few early mist and fog patches once again. They'll clear through the morning. And we've got this sheet of cloud just ebbing into parts of Western England and Wales. It's a slow-moving feature, however, and that means it's going to stay damp across Northern Ireland into much of Scotland. As colder air starts to emerge later in the day, we'll see a few flakes of snow over the peaks of Scotland. But ahead of that, it's a warm day, even warmer compared with today, with temperatures reaching 19 Celsius across parts of central and southeastern England. Feeling colder, however, in the rain and behind the rain as this front slowly edges east and southeast on Thursday night. Friday, that front's still with us, bringing a legacy of cloud and some showery rain across central areas. Saturday and Sunday, mostly dry, but not entirely.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could be the proud owner of a brand new Benevan 122. This very latest 2026 model comfortably sleeps 4, comes complete with built-in kitchen, compact washroom, and is worth over £67,000. But that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £25,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like in the coming year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.